In this video, we're going to talk about, unfortunately, my kidney failure. Just to give you an idea of how this all happened, when I eventually, I had issues with my heart. For years, they tried stents, they tried open heart surgery. The stents blocked off. Then the open heart surgery was to make the bypasses. The bypass surgery failed. The bypasses eventually went down. Only a couple months after they were put in, they started to get scar tissue and clog. So at that point, they tried to reopen the stents and, kind of like somehow get the blood flow going. That gave me a couple more years, but eventually got to the point where the amount of damage to my heart and the amount of blockage and all that just became too much, and you get what they call end-stage heart failure, which either requires a new heart or, in my case, they gave me the LVAD. Some of the risks with that surgery, and they were communicated to me, the risks, are that you could lose your kidneys. Just sometimes it happens. Your kidneys go down. You wouldn't want that, obviously, but it can happen. Other things that can happen could affect, obviously, your blood flow and your circulation, especially when you've had diabetes for over 40 years, like I have had. Some people would require then dialysis 24 hours a day. You would never be able to leave your hospital bed. And that's how I started. After the surgery, my kidneys did go down after the LVAD surgery, which was horrifying, not what you would hope for. And honestly, to tell the truth, they didn't know if my kidneys were ever going to come back. But, I prayed a lot. I tried to have some faith. I tried to fight through it. My family was incredible and stood by me. And we got to the point where I was able to get my kidneys to eventually work good enough that I wouldn't have to stay on dialysis 24 hours a day. For a while there, I was borderline on whether I would need hemodialysis or not. That's that where you have to go 3 times a week, and they take all the blood out of your body, and they clean it, and they bring it all back. At first, I lasted for a little while, but to me, the problem wasn't so much the filtering that my kidneys weren't able to do. It was the volume of fluid. In other words, yes, I was still peeing, but I wasn't, expressing enough fluid out of my body, and so therefore the fluid starts to build up, which becomes very dangerous over time. So unfortunately, I had no choice but to do the hemodialysis, which means you usually go to a center of some type 3 times a week, and takes about 3.5 hours. All the blood comes out of your body. They clean it. They remove the fluid also, and then all the blood comes back into your body. Now, maybe, some people just have dialysis. It's still not a joy, believe me. I feel for those people as well. But as you might imagine, it's compounded a lot more when your kidneys are down and you need dialysis, and you also have end-stage heart failure and an LVAD. Let me give you an idea just how hard that is. When I wanted to leave the hospital, they could not find anyone that would take an LVAD patient for dialysis, right? You'll see centers all over the place, right? But none of them will take an LVAD patient. They just won't. They consider it's a high-risk situation. They don't have the nurses that understand an LVAD enough to do it. So they worry about insurance reasons. And thank God I did find a hospital that was able to do not only outpatient LVAD, but also outpatient dialysis with an LVAD. Like I said, a lot of hospitals will do it inpatient, but if you want to be able to leave and do outpatient, usually you go to a center. I couldn't go to a center because of the LVAD, so I had to go to, fortunately, there was a hospital that had an outpatient service that allows me to get my dialysis 3 times a week. As you might imagine, planning for that, there's a lot involved. Again, I don't just have kidney failure, I have heart failure as well. And so there are things that need to be really looked at when you go for dialysis. The average person goes in, they get it done. It's not a picnic for anybody, but they don't have to really worry about a lot of things I have to worry about. As you might imagine, they're taking fluid off of my body. Fluid is kind of like also how the LVAD works, right? The right side of the heart pumps, the blood, the fluid into the LVAD, and when the chamber is supposed to spin it. Now, when you're getting a lot of fluid removed, there's several things that can happen. The right side of your heart can be affected, which affects the PI, which can affect how the LVAD works. Also, your blood pressure can start to come down. So you really have to keep an eye on that. And they do. They have to take my blood pressure usually every 15 to 20 minutes while I'm connected to the dialysis machine. And there are some times where it affects the right side of the heart to the point where if enough fluid doesn't go into the chamber, then what happens is the LVAD, it's a machine. It doesn't know. It just keeps doing what it's supposed to do. So the right and the left side can become closer and then eventually touch. that can mean instant death. It doesn't always mean that, but it's very dangerous. So you have to keep an eye on the PI. You have to keep an eye on how you feel while you're getting dialysis. It does create a little bit more of a complication. But where I go to, they're great. If I communicate anything, they're right on top of it. So, it's doable. It's difficult. But again, the idea is to understand what it is I have to go through on a daily basis and just how much is wrong with me. So you, again, can appreciate the journey we're going to try to take out of where I am and getting to the point where I can get these wounds healed so I can get my heart kidney transplant surgery. The only other thing I'll mention about dialysis, and this is true for everybody, is there is a special diet that you try to do. You have to keep an eye on your phosphorus, your potassium, certain things, certain food you try to stay away from. I'm also on blood thinners. Now, the new blood thinners that they have, like the second generation, are great, but I can't take them because they don't work with a pump or metal and stuff like that. I have to take Coumadin, which has been around for a long time and carries a lot of unfortunate risks with it. One of my first questions I had was, why can't I go on one of the newer blood thinners? And the reason is because they haven't been tested with the LVAD to a point where they know that it would work or not. So they don't have the data, so they have to use what they do have, which Coumadin does work effectively with the LVAD. So I have diet restrictions for that, the Coumadin. I have diet restrictions for the dialysis, and I have diet restrictions, also for my heart failure. So, the reason why I mention that is because diet's going to become very important in our journey to get there. I am going to use an all-protein diet, protein for every meal, and I'm going to use various sources of protein. But it'll be what I consider like clean protein sources, like probably just beef and certain types of fish and eggs. Eggs are a great way for me to get things other than just meat. It may sound easy, but it's got to take some time to adjust to having only protein for every meal. But that's part of the journey, and seeing what would have to happen to accomplish that, and seeing what the all-protein diet does. I have no doubt that diet's going to save my life, because that diet's going to allow the amount of protein my body needs to heal those wounds. And like I've told you, nobody is ever going to do any type of transplant surgery on me as long as I have open wounds. It's either the wounds get healed and closed, or I'm shit out of luck. There's just no other way to say it. And understand that I might not make it. Yeah, I don't want to get upset, but sometimes I have a lot of anger. I do, and a lot of towards what mainstream medicine has done to me. And what I mean by that is, for the last 40 plus years, I've listened to what these doctors said to do. All right. Oh, you can't have an all protein type diet, but it keeps my blood sugars lower. Yes, but it's very dangerous. You have to make sure you have your carb as your base and blah, 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 and all this food pyramid bullshit. And, you listen to them for 40 years, and this is where I am. I didn't do what I wanted to do because I was made to believe that, it's crazy. It's even dangerous to have an all-protein diet. Really? Well, guess what the reason why I am in the spot I am in now is because my blood sugars were always too high. My A1C was never good enough, okay? And while an all-protein diet would have certainly helped with that, okay, doctors don't really give a good answer why they turn around and say, well, no, you can't do that. What's the reasoning? What drives that answer? Is it based on medical science? I don't think so. I think it's based on the fact that money, okay? It's all about, they're not really interested in you healing. They're interested in treating the symptoms with big pharma. That's what they're interested in. And if you don't believe that's true, then I would say to you, just follow the money trail and you'll get all the truth you need, okay? I'm sorry, but I lived it. I'm not talking out of my ass here. I'm telling you the gospel truth, okay? So after 40 years of listening to them, this is where I am. And changing my diet is going to give me the best chance to control my blood sugars even better, to control my weight even better, and most importantly, to give my body the protein it needs to heal these wounds. So I just wanted to talk about that a little bit so that you can understand why diet is going to be so important. And again, by understanding what's wrong with me is the only way you can really appreciate about where we're going to go together. But I might not make it. I want you to get this. most doctors feel, most of my doctors, that there's a good chance that that these wounds are never going to heal, and that I'll be dead in 2 to 4 years, assuming I'm not struck by a bus. I mean, listen, tomorrow's not guaranteed for any of us. I get that. It just isn't. But at the same time, it's difficult to know that you might only have 2 to 4 years guaranteed. You know you're not going to. Odds are you're not going to make it. But I'm not looking at the odds, and I'm not looking at what mainstream medicine says anymore. I want to take my matters into my own hands and get these wounds healed so I have the best chance to live. And if I don't, well, you'll be here to see that part as well. But that's not what I'm hoping for. What I'm hoping for is that I can take the journey with the diet, and the all-protein diet will help me get to where I need to get to. All right, so the next video we're going to talk about the diabetes and what's that meant over 40 years of having that, and how it causes circulation issues, and the open wounds, and how that has to be dealt with on a daily basis. So hopefully you'll join me for that as well. Thanks again, everyone, and God bless.